Okay. Good morning. Meeting number 486. We must have a quorum. I counted 8. We do. Okay.
We're all here, Bruce, somewhere.
Yeah, we're all here. Everybody awake?
Here.
Approval of the meeting minutes from last month. Everybody, I assume, had a copy and they all read it and studied it. Is there any corrections?
No. Move to accept.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the last meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Fiscal actions report. Same thing.
Move to accept.
Second.
It's been moved to accept it. Any discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Project review.
Resolution 2019-26. Whereas the Commission has received and reviewed the Project Review Actions Report prepared by the staff and dated June 11, 2019. Whereas the Project Review Committee recommends acceptance of the Project Review Actions Report, now therefore be resolved that the Commission directs that the Project Review Actions Report be incorporated in the minutes of the full Commission meeting. So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the Project Review Actions Report. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Project Review Actions Report's been done. The first project is a Class A marina application submitted by Carol Wright, town of Queensbury.
Correct. Yeah, this is a residential area on Cleverdale. It's an existing Class B marina. Carol Wright has applied for a Class A marina to offer 2 seasonal berthing spaces, an increase of 1, which she currently offers. Carol's here in the audience to answer any questions. I ask you to approach the mic and just describe the project a little bit.
Hello. It's not really a project. We just want to rent 2 dock spaces. We have 3 altogether. So I don't know. Was there any questions?
Any of the commissioners have any questions?
No.
Do you have a boat yourself on the dock, or just the,
Do I have a boat?
do you have a boat on the dock, or is it just
I have like rowing boats and kayaks and that kind of
good
thing.
for you?
I have a question for Dave, but can that wait? Should that wait?
Yeah, right now, if you don't have a question,
No,
I'm
not
going to
for
let the
Carol.
lady sit
No.
down again.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else in the audience have any questions or comments on this application? Now you have a question for Dave.
Yes. When I was looking at one of the letters, there were only 2. I just wanted to know about a Class A marina and a residential part of the lake, which is overloaded already with boat traffic.
Yep, so Joe has done all the analysis on this. I'll ask him to jump in.
Yeah, so one of our requirements in the regulations is that commercial docks, approval of commercial docks such as this, and marinas requires approval or demonstration that it's in accordance with local ordinances. So in this case, Carol went to the town of Queensbury. It was just a few days ago, I believe, and they approved the activity. So it's their, the residential, the zoning that is their purview.
Gotcha.
So by having her go to the town first, we can be sure that it's in compliance with local ordinances.
Thank you.
Any other further questions?
Resolution 2019-28. Applicant number is 5234-23-19M1. Applicant is Carol Wright. Whereas the applicant has applied for a Class A marina permit offering 2 seasonal berthing spaces, and whereas the Lake George Park Commission has reviewed the application, supporting documents, comments received, and other information which appears in the record, now therefore be resolved, the Lake George Park Commission hereby resolves to approve the above application as proposed. Proposed condition is due to the original residential nature of the area, marina customers shall not be at the subject property or docks between the hours of 10 p.m. and 5 a.m. So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on the resolution? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. The second project is Mountain Knoll Cottages, wharf modification.
So the applicant here is Michael Chimiak of Mountain Knoll Beach Cottages. This is a resort cottage facility. They're authorized for a 70-foot long dock that was registered back in '81. Air photos show historically the dock has been maintained longer than the approved 70 feet. An order on consent has been signed to bring that into compliance, and the dock is in compliance at this time. Mr. Chimiak has applied for a variance to maintain the dock to extend it to 96 feet. It is located inside the 20-foot sideline setback of the neighboring property, and it also extends more than 40 feet from the mean low water mark, so it requires 2 variances from the commercials, or from the Commission's regulation. And
Thank
Mr.
you, Joe.
Chimiak is
Someone here to speak for
here
it?
to discuss.
Good morning, committee. Like Mr. Thuin said, this is a request for a variance to extend a 70-foot dock out to 96 feet, which is, it's been, well, at least 29 years since it, according to Park Commission records. It was that length when I bought the property in 2007. I'm just looking to restore it back to the 96 feet if that's possible. It's been in my family since 73. My grandparents bought the property, and then my parents took it over from them, and I purchased it, as I said, in 2007 from my parents, at which time the dock was at 96 feet, not knowing I was out of compliance until last year when Molly Gallagher came out and measured it. So I spoke with her briefly about the length of the dock and the setback, and as Joe said, I immediately took the dock out. It's in compliance. They came and checked it. I had the dock out of the water within 2 days when Molly was there. Multiple trips to the Park Commission office to get information on what's needed and the rules and the laws, and just a lot of reading. I don't know if you got a chance, everybody, to look at the packet I gave, and I tried to give you as much information as I possibly could on the background and the use of the dock. The use of the dock will not change. It will stay the same that it's been for the last 29 plus years. I'm not looking to expand anything. I'm just asking the board to bring back what was there all these years, since I've been using it for the last 12 myself, and the 17 before that, at least 17 before that. Do you have any questions for me, please, sir?
Commissioners?
I didn't agree with your financial analysis where you said that since you're losing 2 boat slips, you're going to lose 20. You have 10 units, so you're going to lose 20% of your revenue.
Okay.
I mean, you could easily fulfill the units in the summer with people who don't have boats.
That is correct.
So
that is correct.
you're kind of exaggerating. 20% of your revenue would go away.
I agree with you there. It did say up to 20%. I was trying to give a number, and it was very difficult for me to come up with a number based on what my rates are for the cottages in season and off season. I do have 4 boats on the dock the majority of the summer, and if somebody calls me that has a boat that wants to rent, or at least have a rental, when I have 4 boats on the dock, I would have to decline them. I understand what you're saying. I still can rent to people without boats. Absolutely 100%.
Okay.
100% agree with that. It was very difficult to me to come up with a number on how much financial loss I could take or how much I will actually lose, because it actually hasn't happened yet. This is my first summer where the dock is now shorter, it's 70 feet where it used to be 96 feet. I apologize if that number didn't float with you. I really wasn't sure how to come up with a number. I took my rates, weekly rates for the entire season, in-season, off-season rates, came up with the one number and said, okay, how many times am I not going to be able to rent to people with a boat? And I kind of divided it up and tried to come up with a number, and I said, okay, I make approximately this much a year, this number, how many weeks I could possibly lose it, and I just came up with a number, and I said up to 20%. You are right, I can absolutely rent to people without a boat. You're absolutely right.
Joe, can I ask you a question, Joe, on the history of this? 1981 was essentially was registered as a 70-foot dock. Correct. 70, whatever it was. And then what's the history from 81 till now?
Sure. So it was registered, and it was pretty good registration of existing wharf. Sometimes you get something on the back of a napkin, but this one was, as you've seen in other cases, this one was, well drafted and very clear what the numbers are and where it's located as 70 feet. The next time we stepped foot on this property was when Molly measured it in the fall. Looking back through the air photos, which we did have on record, it shows that as early as 1990, The dock was longer than 70 feet. We weren't aware of it at that time, so this is really the first time it's come to our attention that it was that long, just because there weren't any dock modifications or marina permits or any reason for us to be at the property until now. So it has historically, looking through the air photos, been lengthened, but it's in compliance at this time.
Joe, is this in the setback? Did I hear it was in the setback?
It is. It's located roughly 15 feet from the property line, so it's inside the 20-foot sideline setback.
And the extension, if we added the 20-foot extension or whatever, that essentially penetrates even further from the perpendicular from the shoreline.
Correct.
In other words, it increases the setback.
Right. It increases the setback.
Has there been any complaints?
There haven't, no, so the docks are parallel with the property lines, you'll notice, and all the docks in that area are pretty parallel, so they don't really intrude on each other in use, and being in the field, it seems like there's enough space there. But as you noted, the perpendicular line, because if we're in a bay there, the perpendicular line is more restrictive.
Right.
So maintaining that same parallel course, it gets deeper into that perpendicular line, as you noted.
Any other questions? Yeah. Discuss it. Not at this time.
Okay, thank you very much.
Is there anyone else in the audience who wants to talk on this? I have a couple comments. Joe, according to the record, this was registered as you just said in 1981, 70-foot dock. It became a 90-plus or 96-foot dock approximately 1990. That was the first time we documented that.
Yep.
So they continue to pay 70-foot or 72-foot, whatever it is.
Correct.
Registration fees.
Yes.
So in other words, they've got almost 30 years worth of operation with a fraudulent, well, I don't want to use the word fraudulent is too strong, but for an inaccurate and to grant them 96 feet now to me is what you're doing right now is what you're looking at is a marina expansion,
Right.
which is actually operated for 30 years without paying for that marina expansion.
Yep. Yeah, and
Is that in a nutshell? Is everybody that's what
Yeah.
you're saying?
pretty much roof sheds.
Yeah.
In essence, you sort of buy the variance would be another way to describe it.
Yeah.
Also, adding another 26 feet on there gets worse into the setback. And I don't think we've
It
ever
does.
approved something that makes the setback worse.
I'm not sure
No, I think
this
it's the
dock
other way
would not
around.
have been approved without a variance under our regulations at any point. So what we're doing, if you increase it to 96, you're increasing the penetration into the
Setback.
into the setback, which means you're asking for more of a variance. And as far as I know, we've never done that for commercial operation.
If I may, just to correct,
Sure.
the setback actually increases as the dock length goes out. It does not
Yeah.
does not get closer to the property line. It goes away from the property line.
No, but the perpendicular, the way you measure, the Park Commission measures is a perpendicular from the shore property line.
Okay.
So if you look on the maps, you're actually increasing the setback by increasing the dock into the setback.
Yeah,
Okay.
if your property sets like this,
Yes.
the further out you go, the closer you get to that line. That's what it
Okay.
really amounts
It's
to.
not the property line extended based on the
Yes.
property line, it's based on a perpendicular from the point
Okay.
of shore.
From the shoreline.
Or the point of the shoreline.
Okay. The property line with my neighbor goes this way, and the dock goes this way. So
Yeah.
actually, the line goes away from the dock as the dock gets longer, not closer to the dock.
In, when
Just wanna make sure we're
in real
clear.
terms, I think it appears to bisect the other docks and keep equidistant from the docks on either side as it lengthens. It doesn't get any closer navigationally to any of the other docks.
But the perpendicular line,
Yeah, I mean,
it does get.
if-
Property line is
Right.
what we're talking about.
Yeah,
But it's-
if you extend the property line,
I understand,
yes.
I understand.
But if you
I just,
extend
in real terms,
based on the
it
commission's
isn't-
regulation, is the perpendicular.
navigational problem.
It's not a navigational problem, is what I'm making.
with
the
the
point.
dock to the south
It's not.
But
No,
it is a-
no, extending it
It's
perpendicular
technical.
from the property line.
But even without looking into the property line, you can sit down, we're checking. Even without looking into the property lines,
Yes.
what you're asking for is an increase in a marina operation. And there's no financial justification for it. It says if the dock is 20 feet longer, I can make more money. There isn't a marina on Lake George, and if you add 20 feet of dock space to it, they can't make more money. That doesn't mean that's a financial justification so I don't see any support whatsoever to
Continue.
offer a variance on that.
Right.
Anybody else want to make a comment about that? Mark, you're warming up.
Well, I'm just, from the standpoint of operating for all that time with a lengthy dock, that would be a violation, and that should have been part of a order on consent and taken care of an enforcement action separate from an application. And so tying the two together, I'm not thrilled with that idea. Penalty for doing that is an enforcement action. Going forward,
It's finished, isn't it?
Yes, that's occurred.
that's
all
occurred.
done.
Okay,
It's
good.
all done.
Yeah.
All right, so that's all done, and so as far as that being an issue at this point, I wouldn't consider that in the variance application, applying the strict.
It's a straight variance.
The straight variance, like you said, of course, not being able to make money is not a loss. Not being able to make more. On the other hand, it's been operating for 30 years at that length, in and out, short sometimes, and based on the pictures, sometimes the length is put in, sometimes it isn't. And there haven't been any complaints. But again, applying strict variance requirement doesn't seem to meet that justification financially.
It's a unique situation because
It
of
is.
the family tradition of moving the property, which is great, and that's the way something should be.
Well, that's-
But if it'd been normal John Doe property, it might have sold years ago. And if that had happened through the natural course of events, we wouldn't be here today because we would have discovered this. Just the way the Park Commission's operated in its lifetime, we simply have never been able to audit every single dock on the lake physically during that time to determine that everybody's in compliance that day. Presents a problem for us in the future.
I think we're doing that, right, Dave, as far as inspecting, trying to get through all the docks in the lake?
Every dock modification or permit application is inspected beforehand and after construction is completed. We started that about 7 years ago. But occasionally we find new things that come up that,
Okay.
At this point, when it was found is immaterial.
Material.
What you're really asking is it okay to increase?
Yeah.
Okay, let me read the resolution.
You got a choice of two resolutions, but
Yeah.
normally, and just for people to understand, occasionally somebody says, well, you got the resolution already written out. Well, the resolution is already written out to approve this, but if we don't pass the resolution, that's basically a disapproval. We don't have a pre-determined resolution, just because it's written out. That probably doesn't make any sense, because it doesn't make sense to me what I just said, but
Right. I bought something 30 years later.
Okay, resolution 2019-29, application number is 5222-31-19DM. Applicant is Mount Knoll Beach Cottages LLC. Whereas the applicant has applied for a permit to extend a 70-foot pier to 96 feet, and whereas the Lake George Park Commission has reviewed the application, supporting documents, comments received, and other information which appears in the record, and whereas the commission finds the project will have no adverse impact on the health, safety, or welfare of the public, the environment, or the resources of the park, will not alter the essential character of the area in which it is proposed, will not lead to congestion in the park, and will not have an undue visual, cultural, audible impact on the neighborhood or the park. Now therefore be resolved, the Lake George Park Commission hereby approves the request for a variance and approves the above application. So moved.
Second.
Who seconded?
Who seconded?
Okay.
Did I hear a second?
Yes.
Any further discussion?
I just want to be clear on the resolution that is this to approve?
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The resolution is to approve.
Right.
That's correct, as it normally is.
Right.
And you can vote yes. or
I just
no.
want to make sure because I'm going to cast a vote and I don't want to go
Well,
the
yes,
wrong way.
you should be.
I've done that in this
You
one
should
before.
be sure every time, Bill.
He's the new guy here, so he's got
You don't think we should have put in the criteria for the environmental law 6 NYCR?
That's all in the resolution.
I know it is, but to have it, to have the people in the audience hear it, because I don't know if they have it in front of them. I'm just saying, I know we said we didn't have to anymore starting this meeting, but I just thought in this case it might be good to.
Well, it's in the resolution, which is a part of the record.
Yes, I understand.
But he doesn't have to.
I know that. I
Yeah.
know that. I just wanted it for the for on behalf of the people out there.
So we have a roll call?
Okay.
Any further discussion?
No.
No.
Yes.
No.
No.
Yes.
No.
And no. Please record it. Okay. The resolution, by my count, did not pass.
Right. Denied.
This doesn't mean it's the end for you, sir. I'm going to ask counsel to explain what the applicant can do at this point.
Well, at this point, he can always come back and, I guess he'd go back and ask for a different variance. He could ask for a public hearing on this. If you wanted to ask for a public hearing, there's a whole process involved in that, which we can put together for you on that. It's right in the regulations, and it does involve coming and actually presenting a hearing to determine whether or not the commission wants to move forward on that.
So you do have further obligations, sir. Yeah. I didn't want you to walk out the door and say, okay, they tear me down, there's nothing I can do. That's not true. Okay.
May I ask a question of staff, please? Your dock is removable every year?
Yes, sir.
Can it be oriented, Joe, in such a manner that it doesn't, if it was applied for again, doesn't interfere with the setback requirements?
It could be shifted away. It would still be too far from the mean low water mark at this length.
Right.
It could be shifted outside the setback, but then we'd be coming in close proximity to the swim area, which is something that the applicant has indicated he valued and didn't want to encroach on that area.
How about a different configuration instead of a straight dock that didn't exceed the length?
Certainly possible.
So just giving you some ideas.
Are you asking me?
No, I'm just giving you some ideas of maybe how, I'm trying to find out how perhaps it can be accomplished in other ways that are to a lesser, what do you call, impact on the, or doesn't, easier to approve given the regulations for variances.
Okay. Great. Next item is the legal services provider. I appointed an ad hoc committee of Mr. Nishaw, Mr. Stanek, and you, Mr. Parker. And you assumed the chairmanship about a minute ago of it because you met as an equal body. Would you like to report on your findings?
Yes, I would. What are the number of years, David, that we seek a bid?
We had 6 proposals that were received. We sent it out to more than 20 potential providers, plus a contract reporter and a number of other organizations. That's a response we received back to 6.
And the period of time that we do this is 5 years?
5-year contract.
5 years.
Correct.
Resolution 2019-30.
Before resolution, would you like to tell us what you decided and why you decided it?
It's in the resolution of what we decided, but why we decided it.
I would like to
we
hear you
went through-
state it for the record.
We, after receiving the bids, which were specified and following state procedure, we received the 6 bids. The committee met and reviewed in great detail the 6 bids. There was a criteria sheet set up that each committee member, with the use of a point rating, rated the various criteria, which included knowledge of Park Commission laws and procedures, knowledge of environmental issues and laws and procedures, cost, very important to the item, on an hourly rate, who in the firms would be used to represent us and be in attendance. Jump in here if I've forgotten any other questions.
That was about it.
Pretty much it.
Yeah.
And we all applied privately a number score, and then we discussed our number scores. We then totaled our number scores and took averages divided by 4, and then we arrived at the actual ranking of 1 through 6. And with that, the the successful law firm was Bartlett Ponna Stewart Rhodes, received the highest rating on that process. And that process is transparent and open for review at any time, as is all of our process.
I'll put you further on the spot. Was there any discussion as to perhaps any reason for varying from the rankings that you came up with?
Yeah, we discussed each of the items and how well the proposal matched our requirements. In some cases, the proposal didn't contain sufficient information on our meeting our requirements. So as a result, they got a lower score in some cases.
And we even amongst ourselves challenged each other as to why did you use that rating for that particular line, whether you think I should have been more or less was not the point, was how did I arrive at that numerical rating. 5 out of 10, or it could be 10 out of 10.
So I think it's important to note, perhaps, for the record, that with all 4 individual rankings ultimately combined, as Ken noted, 70% of the final ranking was what's called the technical score. That was how well they met the criteria for what the commission was looking for in terms of their experience, skills, that type of thing. 30% of the score was cost. The cost score was a numerical ranking process used by the OSC and gives you a final number. In both instances, the technical score was the highest for Bartlett Ponna, and the lowest hourly rate out of all 6 providers was Bartlett Ponna. So you take those 2 things together, and they came up with the best overall package, and they're the preferred vendor.
Can I make a comment?
Bill?
I just wanted to say I did, while not on the committee, would have been happy to serve, Mr. Chairman, but I wasn't appointed to this committee. I did read all of the backup documentation, and I read the rubric, I read the rankings, and I decided that I would not have agreed with any one of the evaluators on number scores exactly, but the conclusion was spot on. There was no question about where I would have ended up for a conclusion. So I support it entirely. If that helps you, Mr. Chairman. It looked like a good process and a good decision.
I'm not being a hard nose about this, but I have a problem with how contracts are let, shall we say, at an upper level of state government. And I want the audience and our members of the press here, I can see Syracuse sitting back there, that and let them know that this is an open and fair process, that we don't just hand them out to our favorites, even though she is a very nice lady.
I'm not.
I assume I let the cat out of the bag before he reads it, but that's. Go ahead.
I'd like to make a comment. I'm not questioning the actual outcome of the committee's decision, but if you went through the 6 applicants, those RFPs were very, very lengthy, and the time that for the deadline for their submission to the time that the committee met in this meeting where we're voting on it was actually only a week, and maybe not counting the weekend, maybe 6 days. And I just thought that was a lot of information to digest. And another thing I feel is that the fact is we don't have a pressing deadline. The contract for the firm doesn't expire until October, I think. Maybe we didn't have to rush through this as much, but I know the committee has said they did spend a lot of time on this. I also feel that maybe because this is a 5-year contract, in the future, if I'm still around in 5 years, if I'm that fortunate to be put on this committee, maybe we could interview the top 2 candidates, just so I had a little issue with the technical part, because what you say in an application and what you say in a personal interview where you're putting things more in context might have a little more weight. And that's where I thought it was a little more subjective. But I thought the algorithm and the formula that was used was very fair. Right away, as far as the cost part, every dollar counts. And those 30 points out of 100 definitely was worth a lot. And when our firm that we are using now and what we're going to be using in the future, their monetary cost was a lot less. So, I'm just wondering how that was worth a lot, but I also feel that any firm has room for improvement, and I know that Carla does a commendable job. She's right on the money every time. She's ready to go every time we're here. But I just
discussing the applicants
no,
here.
okay.
We haven't even.
I know, but
Yeah.
Ken let the cat out of the bag, I thought I heard. But anyhow, I just feel that we could use this, could be a little more of a lengthy procedure to hire our firm in the future.
One little comment, Bruce, if I may, for a second. There's an interesting article in Money Magazine a few years ago that I read, because I obviously, as a business owner, hire and fire people. It was an article on how effective are interviews in determining success in your job, and compared to, let's say, not interviewing, just looking at the history of the person or the organization that is looking for employment. The answer was interviews are the worst way to pick people. If you looked at success in the job compared to whether you were picked because you did a great interview or because the numbers were good, you were much more likely to have an employee that worked best if the numbers were good.
Well, I've also read where the best way to pick somebody is through networking too. You could have a pile of applicants that are 150 on your desk, and you're like, holy God, I've got to go through all these, but you know somebody that you can trust his judgment. Why don't you just get a hold of so-and-so? Perfect. I don't have to go through those 150 applicants too.
Well, number one, we were hiring a corporation. We weren't hiring an individual.
Exactly. Right.
And the criteria in which the state of New York uses to hire corporations or jobs done is pretty much written. We don't set the standard. The state sets the standards. And we can't just sit down and say, we don't want to do it that way. We want to bring them in, talk to them, and see if they're going to do it the way we want to do it.
So the standards did not include an interview?
No.
Okay.
No.
And you can't add that on?
Well, how do you interview a corporation? You have them all in?
Okay, I understand what you're saying. Okay, okay.
When we hired an individual, for instance, when we hired Dave, we had, I think, 84 applicants, and we had 12 finalists, and we interviewed all 12, and then we interviewed 3 finalists at the end. So there's some people sitting in this room that were interviewed.
Yeah, but you did interview.
Huh?
You did interview.
That was for an individual.
Yeah, an individual.
That was not
I hear
for
you.
a contract.
I hear you.
This is a contract. It's not an individual.
Yeah, but each contract did enumerate the person or persons that would be the backup for the person that
But
would
it's
be at
still
the
a
meeting.
contract with the corporation. If those
Okay.
persons aren't available, we still have a contract with them.
Okay.
Right.
Which has been exhibited many times. Having heard all of that...
If I could just address Kathy's time frame, the reason that we did it now is the average length of time it takes for Albany to process and approve our contract is a minimum of 3 months. So if we submit this, Roger and I have a little bit of work to do to get this down to Albany. We're anticipating that we're not going to get a contract earlier in September, and this contract is out in October, and that's assuming nothing goes wrong in our approval process. So in talking with OSC and AG, it was recommended we have no less than 6 to 8 months ahead of time. when we go through the
I
process.
appreciate that, Dave. I am new at this, and I just wanted, I had these questions, and I probably
Questions are fine.
should have asked them earlier. Okay, thank you.
Very good, very enlightening. Resolution 2019-30. Whereas the commission retains legal counsel under a contractual arrangement based upon an evaluation of competitive proposals, and whereas the term of the current agreement expires on October 31st, 2019, and whereas the commission prepared a request for proposals which was distributed to a number of area law firms and notice of which was published in the New York State Contract Reporter. And whereas 6 proposals were received in response to the RFP and were reviewed by the ad hoc committee on June 19, 2019, in accordance with the methodology set forth in the RFP, and whereas the firm of Bartlett, Hannah, Stewart, and Rhodes received the highest rating by the ad hoc committee, and the committee has forwarded its recommendation to the commission. Now therefore be it resolved that the commission accepts the proposal of Bartlett, Hannah, Stewart, and Rhodes to provide legal services to the commission for the period of November 1st, 2019 to October 31st, 2024, and I make that as a motion.
I'll second, okay. Second.
Need a bigger
It's been
one.
moved and seconded to accept the recommendation of the committee appointed to select a legal representative. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Carried. Thank you. Law Enforcement Committee, Mr. Parker.
Excuse me. I'm usually... It's here. Chop, chop, really. Tap, tap. Thank you. No. I don't see it. Anybody got it? I can read it?
I have it. Joe's got it.
Let Joe. Well, I got it. Thank you. Thank you.
Come on, Ken, wait.
Sorry.
I got it.
I'm hard of hearing, I can't see, so what do you expect?
Write it out.
Resolution 2019-31. In preface to that, the Law Enforcement Committee did meet this morning at 9 a.m. and we discussed some new safety procedures that the Marine Patrol is accomplishing by increased use of PFDs and tethering the body to the boat kind of situation. And the Marine Patrol, our full patrol schedule starts this Saturday. And then we went into executive session to discuss a particular incident, which leads us to the resolution of 2019-31. Whereas the Law Enforcement Committee met June 25th, 2019 to review matters pertaining to the Lake George Park Commission's Marine Patrol and the Commission's law enforcement program. And whereas active law enforcement cases and their status were reviewed in executive session, and whereas the Law Enforcement Committee has reported on the results of that committee meeting at this full commission meeting, and whereas the Law Enforcement Committee recommends acceptance of this month's Law Enforcement report, now therefore be it resolved that the commission accepts the report of the Law Enforcement Committee, and that is a motion, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the Law Enforcement Committee report. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Public comments. Does anyone in the audience want to make a public comment at this time?
I'm George Goodwin. I live on Homer Point in Bolton Landing. I've got a couple of comments. One is about the Class B marina permit.
Just a little bit. That thing doesn't, believe it or not, that doesn't
not
help.
a mic, that's
just for recording.
So you have to speak up.
Okay, okay. About 20 years ago, a friend of mine kept his sailboat at my place at a mooring, and I got a letter from the Park Commission saying, cease and desist, because it's you don't have a marina permit. It can be your boat. It can be your, if you have a tenant, it can be the tenant's boat. And they said you're doing a commercial thing in a residential area. So in Class B permits, you permit one boat. And I talked to Mr. Muller from the planning board or the legal counsel for Bolton, and it sounds like for a Class B marina, I'm in a residential area. This lady who was here was in a residential area. It seems like should you be enforcing that more efficiently? Does that make sense what I'm asking?
Absolutely.
So, in talking to Mr. Muller, it was vague about who should be enforcing that. In other words, a letter that I got specifically from the Park Commission was saying it can be your boat, it can be your tenant's boat, you're doing a commercial thing in a residential area. This is a residentially zoned area. So you just gave a permit to a lady a moment ago in a residential area. So I wonder about that. So that's my first question.
I'm sorry. Are you advocating that we shouldn't be doing that, or that we should just be looking for them and finding where they're doing
with
it,
the towns, you should be enforcing that if somebody's doing a commercial thing in a residential area, the towns and Lake George Park Commission should be more efficient in terms of enforcing that rule.
Enforcing it so we make sure that they get the permit?
No, but in other words, if they're doing a commercial thing in a residential area, they should not be allowed to put that one boat in because
don't let them do it. Okay,
right.
I just wanted to make sure what you were advocating for. Thank you.
Very good.
Yeah.
Another one is 10 years ago and before, when you would publish you'd send out the bills for the docks and things like that, and you would publish on the back page the water levels of Lake George. I miss that, and I wonder if you guys might consider publishing that again when you send out the spring billing, if that makes sense.
I mean, water levels are different.
In other words, what you would do is in the back page, if you go back through your things, on the back page on the top, it listed what the annual levels should be and what they were. And I think a lot of people were interested to see that. So if you could consider doing that again, I think the public would be interested.
Roger, as a point of information, there's a phone number you can dial up.
I know, but in other words, what you did was that you compiled the last year's listing. I know you can do it on a daily basis, but in other words, just that was a synopsis of what was going on for the year. That was interesting to see. So,
I think, George, what you're referring to was we used to have a spring update, which was our newsletter.
Yep.
That went with the annual bills, dock and boat bills. And we've since not done that in quite a while. But that was always a highlight of the spring newsletter, was the annual chart, if you will, the hydro status throughout the year. I still compile it. I have it. I can provide that to you. Just like that.
So that would, in other words, not just for me, but in other words, if you consider when you put out that
we can
annual...
look at putting that on our website, certainly. It's a report I get on or about the 1st of February every year from
But in other words, you mailed out a printed thing along with the dock bills and stuff like that. So if you could include that, that would be a nice thing.
Well, maybe the compromise again would be to put it up on the website.
Okay.
We're trying to reduce that
But
paper.
I don't read the
It's an expense.
website, but yeah, right.
Good idea.
Another observation, let's see, what was it? I know, a boater safety course. You were interviewed or asked in I think the Post-Star, your comment about the boater safety course that's coming up, and you had no comment. And it was interesting because I was talking to Scott Anderson, who has FR Smith & Sons, and he said they weren't supportive of it because you have more accidents with not jet skis, but non-motorized boats, canoes, paddle boards, kayaks, and stuff like that. And he was supportive of including that in people who took the boater safety course. And so if you guys could come up with an opinion I think that might be a worthwhile thing.
So what George is referring to is Brianna's Law, which is requiring that all boaters over a period of time get boater safety certificates, which actually is the current law, but if this takes longer, anyone born after May 1st of 1996 has to get a boater safety certificate. Brianna's Law, which is on the governor's desk for signature, promotes that moving faster. So if by year 2025, anybody boating in New York State would have to have taken the boater safety certificate. We're an executive agency of New York State. We do not have opinion on legislation regarding that, so it's up to the governor.
And one thing, I was very impressed in another pre-meeting, maybe a year or so ago, somebody told me in your driver's license, once you've taken that course, you can have then put a little anchor insignia put on your license. And that was a great idea. So I wasn't aware of that until maybe you mentioned that to me. So that was an informative thing. And I guess my last thing is I was almost run over by some jet skiers when I was working on a mooring, and I've been concerned about the volume of jet skis in Huddle Bay. I tried to put a petition together to the town, and they said, we'll study it. This was 15 years ago, because there's one little area between Leontine and Hiawatha and Huddle Beach, which is more than 5 miles an hour. And so it just seems like there's a lot of jet skiing going on in Huddle Bay. And if you could address that, that would be nice.
I could sympathize with you. I went to enter Needleside between Chapel Island.
Yep.
Two jet skis coming the other way at about 30 miles an hour through that 20-foot wide channel.
And what I see a lot of the times is they consider themselves...
They were going so fast I couldn't identify them.
They consider themselves a boat, because what they do is that they go very slowly through the 5 mile an hour part of it. As soon as they get outside those 4 buoys, boom, they take off and play around and stuff like that. And I think Chicks has been very good about taking their boats out to Dome Island or whatever to do it. So I think it's more maybe residents and or people who don't know the rules and stuff like that. So the boater safety course, I think, teaches that's what the law is in Lake George. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further comments?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn. Any objections? Adjourn.
Nice job.
Likewise. You don't have to take over the other.